Hey guys, this is Hayes with CheatSheetPros.com. Today is Saturday, May 18th, and I'm going to take 60 seconds, run over the plays we posted yesterday, how we did, and we're going to take a look at some plays today. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet with not a huge explanation on everything. So one of the things that let me flip over here to our chat group. We almost hit this. It was 55-1. We posted it. It had our favorite plays on here. Phillies, Yankees, Braves, Royals, all run line. Phillies, Yankees, Royals, they all hit. Braves did not hit, but then these last three, Skubal pitching outs, McKenzie under earned runs allowed, and Paxton under 5.5 strikeouts, they all hit, so that was fun. I did hit this one on an alt book. It paid plus 475. I had 3 units on it, so that was a really good day for me. Nelson was my favorite pitcher to give up the most hits, and I think he gave up the 5 hits in like 1.2 innings and ended up giving up 11 hits in his start. McKenzie under 2.5 earned runs. That just felt too easy. And Paxton under 5.5 strikeouts. That line just seemed like it was off. We did post these on Twitter, Facebook group. I typically throw a few more plays into our chat group for our premium members that help support us. But that's kind of where we ended up yesterday. We had a pretty good day, so we're going to get back in it today. So let's go ahead and take a look. The first thing I do, now if you're opening up the MLB cheat sheet, I prefer a desktop or a laptop computer, not your mobile phone, even though we have a lot of users that do use their mobile phone, and an actual version of Excel. That's going to give you the best look. A lot of people have done it so long, they're used to doing it on their mobile device with the Excel app. That's perfectly fine, but if you're new and you've never opened it, it's probably going to look a little wonky. So flipping down through here, whenever I want to break down a slate, this is the first tab I go to right here, and this is the betting board. This is going to give you a breakdown of the entire game. So this is going to show you kind of what the teams are doing, the starting pitchers. It's going to give you the main stats, their last 2 starts, how the team is doing hitting. We just look at the runs per game scored over the last 6. We average it out. We give them a hot, cold, warm indicator. And then your pitcher is going to get about 6 innings, usually 5 or 6. And then your bullpen is going to take over for the last third. And then it's kind of hard to see over here, but we do rank the bullpens with our custom rankings. And we have their stats over the last 2 weeks to kind of get a good synopsis of if they're good, bad, to account for any injuries. I do like doing K-props, so I can typically see the strikeouts here. And then in this column, I just pulled in the opponent strikeout rate. So for here, Shota, you can see he has 8 Ks in his last 2 starts, and he's facing a team that's 27th in strikeout rate, meaning they are striking out a bunch. So that might be one that I take a look at. So this is the first place that I go. If you want to break a game down further, you can come over here to the main tab, click inside the home team, and you can go down here and get really detailed game logs. And then we're going to go over and we're going to look at this pitcher tab. Now I'm going to try to keep this video short and sweet, so I'm going to run through this. I'm going to assume that you've seen the sheet before, so you kind of know what's going on. So flipping down through here, there's a bunch of things that jump out at me. I typically know the pitchers well enough. I'm going to flip through and kind of take a look at them and see the games that I do like. And then we're going to go look at some individual player props. So the first one I like here is Kansas City. We got Stripling versus Lugo, 1-7 versus 6-1. ERA is vastly different. XFIP's a little bit closer, but Seth Lugo's above average. But the key stat that jumps out at me here is the whip. So Stripling is allowing a 1.53. Now your whip is your walks and hits per innings pitched. Your average for the league, it's about 1.2, 1.25, somewhere in that range. So when you get below 1, that's elite. So Seth Lugo has been elite as far as limiting hits and walks. Stripling, he's been giving up 1.53, so that means every inning he's on the mound, he puts a batter and a half on base, either with a hit or with a walk. So that's kind of scary because those pitchers can get blown up. The other thing that jumps out at me here is Oakland has really been struggling. They've only mustered up 2 earned runs over the last 5 games. So they're averaging 1.2 runs over the last 5 games. That's going to get our cold nod. And then Kansas City's been decent, not great. They're averaging about 3.6. They had a couple games with 4, a game with 6. So they should be able to get some runs on the board against Stripling. So that is a game that I do like. Kansas City is also at home where they are 16-8 that we can see. That's good. And then Oakland, they're 2-8 in the last 10 games, 9-15 on the road. Sus pitcher on the mound, so that's what we like. Now your starter's going to get 5 to 6 innings, and then it's going to go to your bullpen. Looking at the bullpen is going to determine if you want to do the money line, the run line, or the first 5 line. So here we can see the hitting advantage Kansas City. Pitching, we have an advantage Kansas City. And then looking at the bullpen, let me slide this over. Both of these bullpens are terrible. Neither one of them are really good. Right here, I just kind of glance at this. This is our custom rankings. So you can see Kansas City and Oakland are both bottom 7 in bullpen. There's not a lot of difference between a 3.89 and 4.37. You can see how they rank. So this is a game where I would want to take Kansas City first 5 and maybe lay a half a run instead of the money line so you can get plus money. But Lugo has been fantastic, so we do like Kansas City here. Flipping down here, I was leaning on Houston, but I may shy away from it because Milwaukee's been giving up some runs. But you can see here, this is a big bullpen advantage for Houston. So this is something where I do like them, but they're probably favored enough where I don't like the money line. But you can see that Milwaukee is prone to giving up a lot of runs. Flipping down here, Mikolas, we'll go over him in the pitcher props. He's one guy that I want to go after. The other one is LAA. So the Los Angeles Angels, you can see here, we have a big advantage and even a recommended run line play. And they are actually a dog. So if you took LA minus 1.5 as a dog, you would get huge money. But here we got Sandoval. He's got an ERA of 5 versus Urena, who's got an ERA of 2.31. But if you look over here, it's flipped. So I consider your xFIP is what your ERA should be if you took out, what's it called, independent fielding. But you can see here, if you look at this, this is what most people look at is they log on to MLB.com, they look at the ERA, they see Urena 2.31, Sandoval 5, they're like, oh my God. But you flip it over here to xFIP and, you know, they're a little bit closer. You can see Sandoval's got a much lower xFIP. But what does worry me is his whip is 1.5. That's really high, so that is a little bit worrisome. But then when we come over here and we look at the hitters, we have our classic hot versus cold. So Texas, even though they're a good team, they've been struggling. They're 3-7 over the last 10 games, and they've only scored 3, 4, 4, 0, 1, and 3 runs. So they haven't had any big blow-ups, so that tells me this game is going to be close. And then we look at the bullpen. They're 30th in ERA, 29th in xFIP, 30th in whip. They have a 5.44 xFIP, and they rank 27th in our rankings. Then you flip over here to LAA, and even though the pitching matchup might be a little edge to Texas, look at LA. They've been scored 9, 7, 6, 5, 2, and 9. So they've had 4 of the last 6 games. They've scored 6 or more runs with a 9.67 over the last 3. So they're hot. They're averaging 5.8 runs per game. So they have the bats. If they get some runs on the board, they can turn it over to the bullpen. Even though the bullpen is 1-3, they are much better. They have a very low xFIP and whip. You can see here their ERA ranking is higher than their xFIP, so that means they've been unlucky. But this is still a solid bullpen, which is why it ranks 14th for us. So LA is another game that I do like. There's another indicator that pointed me to that game earlier, and I'll go over it. And then I've been back in Atlanta here. They kind of hurt us last night, but Darvish has just been absolutely phenomenal. 3-1, 2.43 ERA, 3.79 xFIP, and then look at the whip difference. 0.98, so he's sub 1. And then Elder's on my fantasy team, so this kind of pains me to say this, but ERA, xFIP, both over 4.2. And then this whip of 1.65 is alarming. I mean, he's getting close to putting 2 batters on base every inning. And then you can see here, 5.1 innings, 2 runs, 6 Ks. That's a pretty good start, but that probably tells me he stranded a lot of batters on base. But then you see the game before against the Dodgers, he only lasted 3.1, and the Dodgers will definitely take advantage of that and gave up 7 earned runs. So Elder is someone who could get thumped on today. And then Darvish, he's been absolutely phenomenal. 7 innings, no runs, 7 Ks versus the Dodgers. That's a really good team. I always want to look at the opponent. And then before that, they played the Cubs, which are so-so, but 5 innings, no runs, 5 Ks, that's good. Hitting-wise, neither team has been really good, so that tells me this is probably going to be a close game with a pitching advantage towards San Diego. And when I'm looking at this, San Diego should be a slight dog because Atlanta's at home. Pitchers are kind of so-so. Bullpen-wise, they're pretty close to the same. 18th and 24th, not a huge difference. Both bullpens are prone to giving up some home runs per 9, but I do lean to San Diego on this one in a tight game, and this is one I'm probably going to go first 5 and hope that San Diego can get 3 runs on the board against Bryce Elder and that Darvish can hold him down for at least 5 innings and then get the win there because I don't want to look at the bullpen and see who comes in, because Atlanta does have a potent offense, but we don't know who's up in the bullpen. So a San Diego first 5 is a play that jumps out at me. Looking at these last 2 games, I'm going to stay away from them. I do have some opinions on them, but those are the games that I like so far today. The second thing I do once I open up the betting board, if I want to dig into this a little further, which we will do real quick. So San Diego, Atlanta. So say this is a game we want to look at it. We'll go over here to the main tab. Inside the bottom team, the home team, you click in, it'll give you this drop-down menu. You can come down here, and we're going to look at this game. So everything we just saw, it's a little bit more detailed on this page. Whoop, got to slide that over for you. Over here, we can see the last 10 games, home, away, how they've done, runs they're averaging, what the total's averaging, who they've played. This gives us a real quick look at their power ranking and bullpen over the last 2 weeks to kind of tell how a team's done. But the 2 things I love about this is I can go here and see how the team is doing home road versus lefties versus righties. Now, if you don't want to get into the stats, if you don't know like what WOBA, ISO is, just look at WRC+. WRC+ is a very easy stat. Just consider it like 100 is league average. So if you have a 100 WRC+, you're a good, solid, average MLB team. If you are over 100, then you are better than average. If you're below 100, that's a little alarming. You'll notice in my write-up on one of the games yesterday, and the 2 things I'm looking at are the home road difference and then lefty versus righty difference. And I can't remember the game, but in my write-up, I had put in there, let me see if I can find it real quick, because this will give you a good example. So while this is loading up, so the WRC Plus is one of the things that I am going to look at. And let me see if I can find this write-up. All right, so which game did I write the WRC Plus in? Okay, so, that's a lot. I'm not going to delay the video on looking that up. But anyways, you can see here, Atlanta's decent at home, 115 versus 103 on the road. That's, pretty decent. Their average versus a right-handed pitcher, they're really good versus left-handed pitchers. They have a WRC Plus of 120. And then over here, San Diego versus a lefty, they also struggle. Their WRC Plus falls to 87, but versus righties, they're 119. And then on the road, they go from 107 to 116. So I do not worry about the Padres on the road because they actually have a higher WRC plus. And then versus the righty, if it's versus a lefty, I would fade it. But since they're facing a righty, 119, that's pretty good. So that's one that I want to take a look at. Also, if you want to dig into the pitcher logs, we'll take a look at Darvish here. You can see everything. His last 7 starts, we have the pitching out, strikeouts, hits, earned runs allowed, what his Price Picks fantasy score is. That's plus or minus 2.5. Sometimes it's a little wonky. ERA, whip, walks. Walks is a good one to watch and see if they're putting a lot of people on base or if they're giving up a lot of hits. I do a lot of hits allowed pitcher props. So when you come over here and you look at Elder, 8.477, that should be alarming. So in 3 of his 4 starts, he's allowed 7 or more hits. So that's alarming. And then look, he has 2 starts where he allowed 4 and 4 walks. So that can get you in trouble. So that's why we like that game. But anyways, let's flip over and look at a couple pitcher props. So the second thing I do is I go to this pitcher tab. I usually don't have time to dive into hitters, but I go to pitchers. You'll see me talk about power plays. So over here we have our last 10 game power rankings here and here. And if it's of a certain difference, it will highlight. And so here we can see the top 2 today are LAA and New York Yankees. So those are kind of my go-to. Yesterday, it was New York, Colorado, and Tampa Bay. And I put those 3 in a parlay. I posted it in the chat, and it was like plus 617, plus 615. Really good. Well, Tampa Bay won, the Yankees won, Colorado was up 2, and I left it alone. I should have covered it up because they came back, Colorado lost. Otherwise, that would have been a 6-unit hit. But today we've got LAA and New York Yankees. And if you sort this, you can see the ones that don't quite make the highlight, but consider them kind of tier 2 plays. So Baltimore over Seattle, Kansas City over Oakland, Philly over Washington. The Kansas City over Oakland is one that we talked about that I do like. I do lean on Baltimore as well, but they are going up against the ace on the other side in Castillo, so I kind of faded that one. But this is a good quick way to find plays. If you just want to look at power plays and you don't have a lot of time, that's a good place to go. So breaking it down, looking at pitcher props, you can see there's 3 pitchers here I don't have the game logs for. I've added them to the sheet, so they'll be on there going forward. And then K props, this is what the prop line is if it's up in the morning when I run the sheet. And so you can sort here by difference. You can look at it. Braxton Garrett only has 1 start, so that's why a line of 4.5. But what I'm doing here is I want to look at his game logs over the last 7, his average versus the line, and then I want to see what the opponent strikeout rate is. This is your key here. So these greens, these are like bottom 10 teams that strike out the most. So if I find a guy that's averaging a lot more strikeouts and he's facing a team that over the last 2 weeks is striking out a bunch, then that's someone that we want to go after. So to give you an idea, let's flip down some of these. So Castillo, he's averaging 7.4. He has 5.5 line today, so that looks pretty good. He's averaging almost 2 strikeouts more, but he's got a mediocre team in Baltimore, strikes out at the 17th highest rate, so kind of middle of the road. So that one should be good. I mean, he's been over it 7 games in a row. Let's see, Jack, he's 5.5. I really like him. He's also middle of the road, but look, he's got a 14 and a 10. And then he's averaging about 6 a game. 8, 10, 6, 14, 6, 7, and 5.5. So he's another one you could look at. Cutter Crawford, he looks good on the surface at 5.5, but he's never had more than 6. He's pretty consistent though, 6, 6, 6, 4, 6, 6, 6. So if you like that, you can go with it, but there's not enough gap over here. This is 0.2 and enough to get me excited. Elder, we're going to stay away from him. Logan Allen, he really hasn't done much. Ober's all over the map. 6, 8, 7, 10, and then 3 and 3. And then he's going up against a team that strikes out the 8th least amount at 20.7, so I'm probably going to stay away from that one. Flipping down through here, Ross Stripling. This is another game when we were looking at Kansas City. Look at this, 1, 2, 2, 3. So in his last 4 starts, 3 is the most strikeouts he's had, and he's got a low line of 2.5. So Kansas City should get the bat on the ball. Lugo's been fantastic. I don't know what changed here. He had 1, 4, 2, and then he went 9, 8, 5, 12. And then Oakland strikes out at the 22nd highest clip, but 6.5's a little high for me. So that's one I would only take an alt line on. Darvish has been phenomenal. Verlander's a one that I do like. You can see here what jumps out at me, a 24.3% strikeout rate. When you get above 22, 23%, they have the ability to strike out a lot. And here we see a team that's given up the 23rd highest strikeout rate, and his line's only 5.5. Now you can see here he came back, he struggled a little bit. He had a 4 and a 7 and then a 2 and then a 2, but then now he hit this 8 ball in his last start, so that kind of tells me he's getting back on track. So for him to get 6 Ks or an alt of 5+, I do like that. I think he'll get back on track and be more consistent. And you can go over to the main tab and look at the projected lineup and their strikeout rate per hand, but I'm not going to mess around with that. Shota's one we talked about. These last 4 starts, 8, 8, 7, 7. And he's facing a team with a huge strikeout rate, 24.7% over the last 2 weeks, 27th highest, but his line is 7.5. So they pegged that line good. So I would only take an alt line there. Mikolas, I'm shocked at him. His high is 5, and they got a line of 4.5. So I lean under there, but don't really love it. Walker Buehler is another pitcher I want to talk about. So he's facing a team that really isn't striking out a lot, the 10th lowest at 21.1%. He's only got 2 starts, and he's averaged 4 and 2 Ks. So I figured his line would probably be 4.5 because he's still not, throwing 100 pitches an outing, but they got it at 6.5. So that's one I'm probably going to lean under on just because this team does not strike out very much. And then you come over here, earned runs allowed. This is one of my favorite props to do. And you can see here the team, who they're playing, and what the ranking is. But you can just kind of scroll down through here and see what you like. The one that jumps out, Braxton Garrett, 2.5. He's playing the Mets. He gave up 5 in his last start. It's only 1 start, but that's one I would take a look at. And then also you want to compare this with the hits allowed, because this is going to kind of tell you who's good, who's bad. Now what jumps out at me is Darvish. I'm shocked this wasn't a 1.5 line. It's 2.5. So he has to give up 3 earned runs to lose this. And in his last 3 starts, he's allowed 0, 0, 0, and one of these starts was against the Dodgers. So Atlanta's been semi-struggling, so I like Darvish to stay under 2.5. Glancing through some of these other ones, Bryce Wilson has been unbelievable. And I always glance over here to look at his hits allowed, and then you can look at his pitching outs to see how long he's been in the game. And what this tells me, he's not staying in the game long. So, yeah, this might look good. No earned runs, no hits, but he only threw 4 pitching outs. So he threw 1.2 innings. So I don't know if he had a short start, an opener, or came out of the bullpen. But with only 13 and 12, he's not on the mound a lot. And Houston's been getting hot recently, so I'm going to throw that one out the window. Verlander, 2.5. I like that. He's coming off of a great start of 0 earned runs and only 2 hits, so that's one we could take a look at. Seth Lugo at 2.5. That's another one. 1-3-1-0-4. I mean, he's doing pretty good. Lugo's been pretty solid here. So he's been over twice, but the other 5 starts, he's been under 2.5, and he's facing Oakland, which ranks 29th in our power rankings, so I like him to stay under as well. Flipping down through here. And then when we go over here, let's sort by average hits allowed. So these pitchers up here are going to be giving up the most hits. These are the ones you want to target if you're going after for DFS. And of course, Mikolas, he comes up here to the top. I always do an alt 5+, 6+ hits allowed on him. And you can see 6, 9, 6, 7, 9. He gives up a bunch of runs. He's probably the pitcher that I'm going to target the most. Elder, he's been giving up a bunch of runs. His hits prop, I'm curious to see what that is. 7, 7, and 8. He's given up a bunch. And then these guys down here, these are the elite guys. So look at Darvish, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. So he's not giving up many hits, so he should be a good pitcher to back today. Severino, 4, 4, 1, 5, 5. He's pretty decent. Miami ranks 21st, so I like the under there. Bailey Ober versus Cleveland. This is one of the reasons I kind of hesitate with Cleveland. He's only allowed 1, 3, 3, 2, 3, 3 hits, and he's going 5 innings. 5 innings, 6 innings each start, so Ober's been really good. So that would be a live game we would look at that we discussed. Bryce Wilson, not a ton of time on the mound. Lewis Gill versus the White Sox. That's an interesting one. 0-1-0. But it's a 1-5, so I don't want to go under 1.5 earned runs. But I'd be interested in his hits allowed, only allowing 3-1-2. He did give up a 6, but then 2-3-2. And yeah, he's actually been really good. So that's another one that I would look at. And if you dabble in the props of to record a win, most of them are usually plus money. This is fun. You can sort by average wins, and you can kind of break down, and it pulls their game logs, and it shows if they recorded a win, if it was a no decision, it's just a dash, or if it was a loss. So you can kind of see here, Patrick Sandoval, he's recorded a loss several times. Then you come up here and you've got Cole Irving, who's recorded 4 straight wins in 4 straight starts. And then Lugo, you can see he's got, 5 wins in 7 starts, a no decision, and 1 loss. So he would be another one that you could take a look at. And we do the same thing with walks allowed and home runs allowed. So anyways, that's kind of what I got so far today. I am going to get this posted, and you guys have a good day.